Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you are new, welcome to the channel. Before we begin the video, let me please again request, click the like and click the subscribe button if you please. Do me a huge favor. Right, today we are going to be looking at Deadbelt. And this is a game by acoupleofdrakes publishing. It's marketed, or it's put on the front cover as being a solo RPG for space cowboys. Well, to be honest, there's not much RPG here, but it is definitely a solo space cowboy game. I would probably describe this more as a print and write or roll and write sort of campaign game. A little bit narrative, but it's still a lot of fun. And I think this is another little gem from a small or indie publisher that I think deserves a look. A lot of these small games from indie or small publishers don't get the attention that they deserve. So that's one of the things that we are trying to do with this channel, is to raise awareness of maybe some of these games you haven't heard of. And I think Deadbelt could be one of those. But it is worth a look. I bought this, when did I buy this? January maybe? I think I got it for $10. I think the price has increased a little bit. I think you can find it on Drive-Thru-RPG, and I think itch.io. I think it's 12 or 15 US dollars, but it's a lot of fun, and it's a small book. How many pages is it? There's no page numbers. I mean, that's one thing they can do, is put page numbers on here. But it's not a huge PDF. And in the purchase, you will get a little kit pack, a little add-on PDF, which has the character sheet and also the cheat sheet, or the quick reference sheet, which is very, very useful. So you don't have to keep referring back to the book. So yeah. What's this game about? Well, it is. What's the best way to describe it? It is Firefly meets Space Sweepers. Are they called? Is it called Space Sweepers? I was watching a movie or TV series the other day. I think it was about a week or so ago. I think it's a Korean one called Space Sweepers, and it's about salvagers in space, where you go out and you find these derelict ships or these shipwrecks in space, and you try to salvage as much as you can off them. In Firefly, if you're familiar with Firefly, if you haven't seen Firefly, well, why the hell not? It's a marvelous series. I think the very first episode of Firefly, the very first scene, is you see the crew of the Firefly salvaging this wreck, and they're trying to kind of hide from the authorities, and they're trying to get the cargo off and onto their ship so that they can sell. That's essentially what you're doing here. In Deadbelt, you are what they call a belter. Let me move these out of the way for a second. You are what they call a belter. You'll have to excuse me, the binding, I think the binding thing's a little bit too small for the book. I have to get it changed. But yeah, you're a belter, and you go out into space. And they have a little bit of a story here, where basically there's a black hole, and everybody leaves their old ships and rubbish and garbage near the black hole, so it kind of gets swallowed up and forgotten about. Yeah, trash and waste problems gone. But you kind of make a living by going out to to the outskirts of the black hole, because you don't want to be sucked in yourself. But you kind of go to these old ships and you try to salvage as much as you can. Sounds dangerous? Yeah, it's bloody dangerous. And you're alone. I wouldn't do this alone. I mean, this kind of job, I think you need a buddy, at least a partner or a team. But no, in this game, you are alone. And you're going out into space. And this game has very good mechanics to make you feel like this belter, in terms of exploring ships, in terms of managing your oxygen supply, finding salvage, using resources. It has very good mechanisms for this, and it uses both dice and playing cards. As you can see here, I've got my dice and I have my playing cards all ready to use. So yeah, that's the essence of the game. And what you're doing is you're going out, salvaging a wreck, coming back. You're going to pay your upkeep. You have debt to pay off, possibilities of debt increasing. You can upgrade your ship, you can upgrade your stats, and then you do it again. You go out, you find another ship to salvage, and hopefully you come back with cargo, and you keep doing this. Now, when your debt gets too high, you lose the ship. You can die by all manner of ways on the ship you're going to be salvaging. So there's a lot to this game. Now, when I first read this, and I must admit, I did leave it a while before I read it. I started reading this about a week ago. And I think Daniel at the Dungeon Dive, he released a video a few days ago, and it kind of kicked me in the arse and said, "Oi, get off your backside. Look, somebody's already beaten you to it. Come on, you need to put your video out." So Daniel at the Dungeon Dive has done a very good video as well. Go and see that after this. But yeah, that's essentially what the game is about. You're scavenging derelicts. What do you need to play? Not a lot. You need the rules, whether on your tablet or as a printed book like this. I printed mine out and bound it. You need a deck of cards. You need 2 dice, D6 dice. You're also going to need some tokens to represent things that you find, because you do have one of your stats is load. You do have a certain limit to what you can carry from the ship back to your airlock. So you will have to leave resources and salvage on parts of the ship, and you can try and go back and collect them afterwards. So you're going to need to have some tokens or some indicators of what's on the ship that you find. Now I'm using these tokens, and these are from I think one-page rules. So you can find salvage. This is what you're looking for. This is what you'll be taking and then selling for creds, the money. And then we got grit, gear, and O2 or gas. These are, I mean, they're resources, but they are your stats. These are measurements of how good or how bad you are at certain things. And you can actually find these as supplies on the ship as well, where you can replenish your grit, for example, or your gear stats. Or you could even find extra that you can actually put on your ship once you get certain upgrades as a backup store. There are also threats. There will be certain times where it will tell you, the game will prompt you or tell you that a threat has arrived or appeared. And these can be any number of things, but they're not good. They're really not good. So you're going to need to have a number of tokens to represent things that you find. And you will need a token or a mini to represent you so that you can monitor where you are on the ship. You'll be using the cards. One of the ways you'll be using the cards is to actually build the ship plan. And you'll need a token for yourself to see where you are. You will need to have the character sheet. The cheat sheet would also be very useful. And of course, pencil and eraser. That's it. That's all you need. So the game is not a big investment in terms of money, but I think once you start playing it, it could be an investment in time, because you will want to explore one more ship, one more time into the belt, dear friends, once more. Right, let's take a look at some of the rules. I'm not going to cover everything, obviously, but because you've got to leave some surprises. But let's have a look at the basics of the game itself. Now, if we look at the character sheet, you'll see that it's split into a number of different areas. You have your debt, investments, cred, and upkeep here. You have your ship, which indicates how much cargo can be carried. Spares bank is an upgrade you can buy, notes, upgrades, and then here you have your basic stats. Now, the first one is grit. So this is your calm, your experience, your luck, and ephemeral edge. Now, you can use grit to turn a fail into a partial success or a mixed success. So let's say, for example, that you start with 3 grit, according to your character. You can use those points of grit to change the dice rolls. Okay? And like I say, you can find, well, if you're lucky, you can find supplies to replenish this. At the start of the next mission, this will all be regenerated. It's not a problem. But if you use the last point of grit, the threat appears immediately. That's something you need to be careful of. So you can use a point of grit to turn a fail into a partial success. We'll talk about this right now, actually, because when you roll a dice, it's normally just 1 dice. A 1 to 3 is a failure, a 4 or 5 is a mixed success or partial success, and a 6 is a full success. That's how the dice work. Very simple, very easy to remember, but in different prompts and different occasions and different encounters, it will of course lead to different, what is a partial success? Well, depending on what you're doing, it will tell you. But that's how the dice work. Very, very simple. A 1 to 3 fail, 4 to 5 partial or mixed success, and a 6 is a full success. Now with grit, you can use a point to change a fail into a partial success. Very, very useful. Gear, your second stat, you can use this to add an extra die to your roll. Now for this, you have to make the decision before you roll the dice. You can't roll the dice and say, that's not good. I'll use a point of gear, I'll roll another dice. So this, you have to basically decide before you make the roll. So instead of rolling 1 die, oh my God. One point I'm gonna make a few times here is that I do roll a lot of 1s. If you watch my other videos, you'll know this. So I do use a lot of grit and gear because of this. So with gear, you could actually roll 2 dice and take, take the best result. What else? Load. This is how much you can carry. You will be finding amounts of salvage that you will try to carry, even resources. Your load tells you how much you can carry in 1 trip back to the airlock. The higher the load, the less trips you make. What else do we have? Glow. So with glow, this is basically, you're carrying a flashlight to look around, but you can use your flashlight to do a focused beam, like a really strong beam. It drains a battery, and that's what this glow stat is. It's like batteries. But you can actually look into the next module to see what's ahead of you, so there's no surprises. Normally, a character will start with 1 glow stat, which means you can do it 1 time. There is one character type called the Void Rat that gets an extra 1. That's his special. And then we have gas. Now, gas is the bane for me of this game. I've played a couple of games already, learning the rules, testing the rules, in preparation for this video. And gas has killed me every time. Well, not lack of gas, This basically is your oxygen supply. Now, the thing is, I love the system they're using for gas. I love it's a degrading system. But because I roll a lot of 1s, I do tend to roll a lot of 1s, it screws me up badly. How does it work? Okay, well, you start the mission and you've got a full tank of gas. You've got a full oxygen pack, right? Every time that you move into a new area, or every time you move into an area, of the ship, even if you move back into an area that you've already been, you have to test your gas. You have to test your oxygen. And the way that you do that is you roll a d6. Now, this is a little bit different from the general d6 of 1 to 3 is a fail, 4 to 5 is partial, 6 is success. With gas, it's a little bit different. It's a degrading roll. Is that the right word? So with a full tank, what you'll do is when you move to an area of the ship, whether it's new or you're going backwards, you roll a d6. On a 2 to 6, everything is fine. Your oxygen is still there, you've still got plenty of supply. If you roll a 1, then your oxygen is starting to deplete. And what you would do is you would knock off the first box here. The next time that you have to check for gas, a 1 or 2 is a failure. If you fail a second time, you cross off another box. And then the next time you have to test for gas, a 1, 2, or 3 is a failure. And if you ever get to where your gas increases to 6, even if you get back to the airlock and you have to make a gas check, you're dead. You're dead. You're void meat. And that's what I mean by this degrading system or whatever. Once you start failing, it gets worse and worse and worse, harder and harder and harder. Yeah. So once you start losing that gas, it's a lot higher chance that it keeps going down, 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 down. So this really is a good way for you to have that uncertainty, but to have that first warning signs. The thing is that once you start losing 2 or 3 points of gas, you need to get out of Dodge fast. Yeah, you need to run. The first game I played, I think I explored 2 ships. And then the gas got me. I just couldn't get back to my airlock in time. I think the second game that I played, I had an encounter where I fell unconscious. And it said when I woke up, I had to check gas multiple times. And I failed every single one of them. And it killed me again. So yeah, I like this system. It can be used for so many things. I really do like that idea where once you fail, it's more likely that you fail again. So I like that. I mean, I don't like it because I keep failing it, but I like the mechanism of how it works. We also have some other stats which are on the character sheet. So you've got cred. This is your money. Upkeep. This is like your maintenance, your food, your repairs. You normally start with 1, but as you start adding upgrades and you start increasing your stats past a certain point, you will also add to your upkeep. And this is what you have to pay every time that you come back. You have to pay this from your earnings kind of thing. If you can't pay your upkeep, the bank comes and takes everything, game over. The cargo, yeah, there are 3 types of ship. We'll have a look at those in a second. Small, medium and large. And basically your cargo space is 10, 20, 30. So if you're taking the small ship, you only have 10 cargo spots. So you can only bring back 10 pieces of cargo. If you have the jackdaw, which is the medium ship, you have 20 spaces. So you will use these spaces and these spaces to make 20 spaces for cargo. That's how the cargo spaces work. Upgrades, there's a lot to choose from. They all have different costs in terms of purchasing, and they all, well, I mean, most of them, the permanent ones, tend to have upkeep additions as well, so they can raise your upkeep. So you have to think about what you need to buy and whether you can actually afford to keep it up there. There is also, if you can see, I don't know whether you can see on this sheet, you have a column here for your upgrades, owned and active. Certain ones of these you can actually turn off for a certain mission. So let's say we go on a mission. When we start the mission, we have to decide, is it active or not active? For example, the scanner. If it's not active, it won't affect your upkeep. So that's one thing, but you can't use it for the mission. So, I mean, it's a useful thing to be able to turn them on and off, I suppose. Debt, yes, debt. This is what you owe, and this is what's going to determine whether you win or lose the game. Normally, I mean, there are plenty of ways to die and lose the game, but your debt is it's a constant vulture flying above you. You have to control your debt. You're going to start off in debt. Normally, it's between 2 to 8 debt. Once it gets to 9, you start losing abilities, you start getting worse. When it gets to 10, you lose the game. Now, each debt can be paid off by paying 10 creds. And that's what you're going to try and do. You're trying to pay off all of your debt, you know, to be safe. But to pay off your debt, it's going to cost you 10 credits per level of debt. And again, when you come back from a mission, you've got to check and see what the bank does. They can increase the debt. They can give you debt, but give you money at the same time. There's a lot of things that can happen. Investments. Okay, so for 5 credits, you can actually take out an investment. Now, what that does, each investment will reduce your upkeep by 1. Now, short term, it doesn't seem to make much sense. Long term, of course, it does. You're paying 5 credits to save 1 credit. But the thing is that you can actually cash in your investment. As long as you do it before the upkeep, you can actually cash in your investment and get your money back. So you pay 5 credits for an investment, it knocks 1 off your upkeep. You can pay another 5 credits to knock off another upkeep. And then next turn, before you pay the upkeep, you can actually get your credits back if you want to. It's not a waste of money, it's just I think it's a long-term thing. It's something that you need to think of in terms of long-term. I think early on in the game, as you're doing your first few missions, I think there's other things that may be better to spend your money on, like load increases, spares bank, scanners. These are all very, very useful things. What else do we need to know? Okay, birds. This is the name we give to the salvage ships, the derelicts that we are going to hunt down. The airlock. This is going to be the part of your ship that you attach to the derelict. This is going to be represented by the red joker from your card deck. You have what we call a payday. So there will be one module or one location on that derelict ship that has something very valuable. It's called the payday. Sorry, it could have something very valuable. When you go to the payday, you've got to roll. If it's a 1 or 3, it's fuck all there, you've been done. Anyway, the payday is going to be represented by the black joker from your deck. Threats, yes, there are encounters, there are times when a threat will attack you, will board the ship, or you'll find it on the ship. Things like aliens, ghosts, nanobots, pirates, lots and lots of things that are really not good for you to find. And this can also happen if you use your last point of grit. If you use your final point of grit, a threat will appear. Shipbreaker, yeah, sometimes the ships will break apart. I'll show you how that works on the ship plans. And it could be that you're on one part of the ship, your airlock's on the other part of the ship, and then you may have to spacewalk to escape. Spacewalks are risky, but sometimes you have to do it to reach parts of the ship that are blocked with a barrier or obstacles, or maybe, like I say, the ship's broken apart and you've got to get back to your ship. So sometimes spacewalks are necessary, but they are risky. The bankroll, yeah, every time you come back from a mission, you've got to check and see what the bank's going to do. Sometimes they're nice, sometimes they're not. Normally they're not. And there is also something called push. When you're exploring the ship, and like I say, the ship is going to be made up from cards representing the modules. If you uncover a red card, you do have the option to push. Now, this is a bit of a gamble. You could get a better reward, but if you do it too often, it can really screw you up if you don't get a red card. So that's the essentials of the stats and everything else we need to know. In terms of your belter, there are 5 types of character that you can have. The most basic is called the vet. You've got a bit of a description here. You've also got a bit here about their aspirations, about why they're doing it. Each character will have starting stats. Now, every character, like I say, except the Void Rat, will start with a glow of 1. But the grit, gear, and load will be different for each character. So this makes them different to play to begin with. But also, they have special features or special abilities. And again, every character is different. So the vet has a couple of abilities here which help in terms of getting past obstacles. The cowboy, again, you'll see the stats are different here. So the vet had 3 grit, 1 gear, 4 load. The cowboy has 4 grit, 2 gear, and 2 load. So different stats means a different point of view, a different outlook on how to play this. Also, the cowboy is better when the ship breaks or when they spacewalk. So that's their strength. But here's the thing. Different characters are going to give you starting debt. The vet, who's the most basic, will give you a starting debt of 1. The cowboy will give you a starting debt of 2. Void rat, 2. Scoundrel, 3. Slicer, 3. Because these are generally more useful when you're exploring the ships. So you get more debt when you start the game to balance that out. Another thing is that your ship, you have to choose. Do you want small, medium, or large? We touched upon this when we were looking at the character sheet. Now, of course, the bigger ship can carry more cargo. You can put more stuff on there. It can also have a bigger spares bank where you can store more resources like grip points, gear points, oxygen. But the debt is going to be higher. This is added to your character debt. So for example, if you wanted to play a scoundrel who has a starting debt of 3, and you wanted the albatross, the big ship, that has a starting debt of 5, you're starting at 8 debt. 10, game over. 9, when you reach 9 debt, every character has something bad that happens to them. So you have to make some decisions to begin with. Now you can trade in the ship to buy a bigger ship. So for example, if you start off with the small ship and you say, I want to get the jackdaw, okay, you trade in your small ship, you get 3 creds. You can then buy the medium ship, but it will give you 3 debt. That's going to be the cost. That's the equivalent of 30 creds, yeah? If you want to buy the albatross, it's 5 debt. That's the equivalent of 50 creds to pay it back. So you can change your ship later on once you start earning more creds and finding more loot. What else is there? Mechanics, yeah. We talked about the bank, yeah. The bank can really screw you up. Every time you come back from a mission, you've got to make a bank roll. You check your current debt and then you roll on the table. You could get compound interest. That basically means your debt's increased by 1. No options, no choices. You got +1 debt. It could be no change, in which case your debt is fine, or there is extend credit. Now, extend credit says they offer you 9 creds in exchange for 1 point of debt. So the way that I read this is, if you roll extend credit, you have the option, you don't have to, you've got the option to get 9 creds from the bank, but your debt will increase by 1 point. That's how I'm reading this. But you don't have to do that if you don't want to. But this is done every time you come back. Every time you do your scavenging, you come back, you have to check what the bank's doing. Are they adding more to your debt? Are they not changing anything? You'll notice that it doesn't go down. You've got to pay for it to go down. What else is there? The payday. Yeah, when you find the black joker in the ship, again, you have to roll. On a 1 to 3, it's not there. It's been stripped. It's crap. It's useless. On a 4 to 5 or a 6, you get to choose some benefits. On a 4 or 5, you can choose 2 benefits. On a 6, you can choose 3 of these. And these are things like it's worth more. You can transport all of it in one go, regardless of your load size. You don't attract any threats while you're bringing it to your ship. The ship won't break apart while you're bringing it to your ship. You don't have to spend grit or check gas as you're bringing it to your ship. Once you bring it to your airlock and you drop it off at your ship, when you go back into the ship, then everything goes back to normal. The size of the payday depends on the size of the ship you're actually scavenging. So obviously the bigger ships, the bigger the payload. What else? When you go back to the airlock, you've got to also make a roll to see whether you can continue or whether you finish. So again, you roll the d6. On a 1 to 3, you've got to choose 2 problems. On a 4 to 5, you've got to choose 1 problem, and then you can possibly go out and search again. On a 6, no problems whatsoever. Go back into the ship and find more stuff. While you're at the airlock, you can also resupply from your spares bank if you have one. So you can stock up your grit, your gear, your gas, depending on what you have. If you have the spares bank. There's a lot of stuff that you can do in this game. There's a lot of stuff, but it's once you start playing the game, it does make sense. It does flow really well. Spacewalking. You've got to make a roll to see how well you can spacewalk, whether you get to the other module or the other area of the ship safely, or whether you have to spend a resource and try again. And to do spacewalks, you may have to draw cards, and if you get too many black cards, you're dead. If you get red cards, you're kind of okay for the moment, but you've got to get that sort of 6 to get across. And then we come to the ships themselves. Now, I like the way they've done this. The way that we are going to use cards to show the ship plan. So when you start your mission, when you start the game, you're going to roll to see which ship you're going to salvage. And you'll do this every time. So the first time you go out, you'll roll, you'll see what kind of ship you're going to salvage. You come back, you pay off all your upkeep and everything else. You go back out, you roll again to see what ship. It's all random. So you roll on the first table here. So for example, I would roll a 5. A 5 is tier 2. So it's a medium-sized ship we're going to. You then roll on the tier 2 table bit here. I get a 2, so it is a civilian ship. Then we go to this part. These are all the deck plans. Tier 1 civvy, tier 1 merchant, tier 1 military, tier 2. Okay, so this is the tier 2 civilian. So this would be the layout for the civilian class, or the ship that we're going to be looking at. You've got tier 2 merchant, tier 2 military. Again, you can see the layouts are very different, which is going to affect your search. Then you have tier 3, civilian, merchant, and military. At the top, it tells you how many cards you're going to need. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this is 11 cards, but it tells you 10 cards plus the joker. So what you will do is you will take 10 cards from your deck. So you will shuffle the deck. This has already been shuffled. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's say, for example, we're doing this, the tier 1 military, okay? We've got 10 cards, and we will add the black joker to this set of cards. Remember, the red card, the red joker, is your airlock. So with the black joker in here, I would then shuffle these cards. I'm not very good at shuffling. I'll probably drop half of them. So you shuffle these. Oh, nearly. Okay. And then what you will do is you will put these cards in this layout, and that will represent the ship that you are going to explore. So let me see if I can quickly do that. I don't know whether I've got enough space with the camera angle. So we're on a military ship. So we've got 2 at the top. We've got 1 there, and 1 there. Then we've got 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we've got one down here. I don't know whether we can actually see this. Can we see all the cards? Not quite. Okay, let's push these ones up here. Let's do like that. And do like that. And do like that. Can we see all the cards? Yeah, kind of. So this would be the layout for this tier 1 military ship. Now, you'll also notice that on some of these cards, or these represent the modules of the ship. So you'll see that some of them have these numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. This is for when a threat appears. You're going to roll randomly a d6 to see which of these modules, where on the ship the threat will appear. And then when the threat appears, let's go and have a quick look at the threats, since we're talking about the threats. Each threat will then have a certain set of rules in terms of, let's put this down there nicely, don't disrupt the cards. So you'll roll to see which threat. There are 6 different threats, And then they all have different rules in terms of how they move and what happens when they come into your module. There's also rules for when they reach your airlock, if they get to your airlock. You've got aliens, like I say, you've got pirates, nanite swarms. So there's a lot of different things that can happen. And like I say, those numbers would be possible locations where the threat could appear. So on here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now, I normally put my airlock on a location that doesn't have a threat number, just to make sure they don't suddenly appear on my airlock. You know, if they're going to invade my ship, I'm going to make them work for it. You know what I mean? So I don't know, looking at this map, I would probably put my airlock here. So that's what you do. When you've created your ship and you found out what ship you're going to be searching, and you've laid out all the cards, you then have to place your airlock onto one of these modules. All right? You could put here if you want. It's not a problem. You can put it anywhere you want. But that card that you're going to cover is then classed as destroyed. Now, there is a chance that the card that you cover with your airlock could be the payday. This is where the upgrade scanner comes in, because you can actually scan the card first to make sure that it's not the payday. So let's say, for example, I put my airlock there. The card under there, this card essentially is destroyed. I can't scavenge that location. Hopefully it's not the payday. So this now represents my airlock on the ship, and that is where I'm going to start the game, and that's how I'm going to move around. So I would put my character model or token onto that location, and I would then want to start moving around. And that's how the game plays. Every time that you move to a different location, you have to check your gas. So as we mentioned earlier, it is a degrading, I think that's the right word to use, a degrading roll. Degrading, so I roll, I get a 3, my oxygen is fine. If I had rolled a 1, it means my oxygen is going down. I have to tick off one of the boxes, and next time I have to check my gas, I fail on a 1 or 2, etc., etc. So my gas is fine at the moment. So let's say that I move here. My gas was fine. I got a 3, didn't I? Right, so my gas is fine. I move to this area here, which is what I have to do, and then I turn the card over to represent what I find in that module, in that part of the ship. Now there are 4 suits, of course: clubs, spades, diamonds, and hearts. Each suit represents a different type of find. Clubs are barriers or obstacles that you have to try and overcome. Spades is bad news. Bad news, bad news. Rest in peace, Rick Mail. But yeah, spades are bad news. They're encounters, they're things that go wrong. They're not what you want to find. Diamonds are salvage, the cargo that you're trying to find. So diamonds are always good. And hearts are supply or resources. You could find extra grit, extra gear, extra oxygen. So we've turned over this one. This is the 4 of spades. Now that's a bad news card. Yeah? If we look at the book, bad news, spades. So the 4 of spades, let's just put this here for a second. I don't want to move the cards. Lights go out. How's that flashlight looking? Because all of the light bays just went dead, and now you're going to have to do this in the dark. Right, so you see we have to now make a D6 roll. Now, do I want to use gear? Remember, your stats, your grit, your gear, and your glow are basically resources that you can use, but every time you use, you knock one of them off. You reduce the stat. So I could use a gear to roll 2 dice and take the best result. Let's have a look and see. A 6, reroute power, kick on the emergency lights. Okay, 6 is a success. A 4 or 5 is a partial success. You can rig it, but it's going to take time a bit. Spend a gear or check gas. Okay. A 1 to 3 is a failure. If you do not have glow remaining, roll 2 die and take the lower when navigating modules. Okay, so would that mean I have to use glow? I have to use my resource of glow? instead of that? Or is this only if I don't have glow? I'm going to assume that, I mean, reading it, it sounds like I don't have to spend glow here. If I don't have any glow left, I'm going to roll 2D and take the lower when navigating modules. Ooh, that's nasty. Okay, so I'm just going to roll. I got a 3, of course I got a 3, but I could spend 1 point of grit to bring this up to a 4 or 5. Yeah, remember that's how you use grit. So I'll do that. Maybe I'll check gas again. I get a 2. My gas is fine at the moment. So okay, the lights go out. I don't find anything in there, but at least nothing happened to me. But I did spend 1 point of grit in order to be safe. So there's nothing in there, so I can continue exploring. So maybe I want to explore this module now. So I move over to here. I have to make a gas check. All right, so now I roll a 1. What that means is on my character sheet, I would have to tick off one of my gas, and next time I have to check gas, I fail on a 1 or 2. It's a slippery slope. Once you start losing gas, it's a slippery slope, and you start losing it faster and faster and faster. So, but let's see what we found. I'm safe at the moment. I'm safe. Okay, I don't not panicking yet. All right, we got 5 of hearts. So hearts are the supply. Now I could really do with gas because that could reset my gas back to normal. So a 5 of hearts. So we come here. So for a supply, we roll a d6 and it tells me how much of that supply I found. Now again, look, 1 to 3, nothing. 4 to 5, you get 1, and a 6, you gain 2. Now remember, a little while back, I mentioned a thing called push. I could try to push this to get more supplies. To be honest, without a spares bank on the ship and without having used a lot of my resources, it may not be worth it. I may save that for when I find cargo. Yeah, the diamond cards. So I think I'm just going to do normal on this. So I'm rolling to see what I get. I get a 4. I get 1 of the marked supplies. So the 5 of hearts is morale cabinet. That bottle was old when this bird was hauled out to the belt, but it's not like a pull from it's any less bracing for all that. Okay, so we get a nice drink. But we will get a 4, means 1. We get 1 grit. So I used a grit earlier to change the dice. Basically, this is now giving me that grit point back. So that was very useful. I would have preferred gas, to be honest, but it's fine. It's fine. So now what do? Well, we keep exploring the ship until my gas gets too low or until I find enough cargo. Now my ship can carry a maximum of 10 cargo. So what I would do, I can't, see the thing is with this layout, there's no other adjacent modules to this card. I can only go backwards. The other option is that I could try to spacewalk to here. Now, for the spacewalk, I'm still a little bit unsure because it says about crossing a gap. I don't know how big that gap is, whether it's just like one module or whether I can actually spacewalk from here to here. I'm not too sure about that, but I think I'm just going to go back this way. Now, this is another thing that I'm not 100% sure about, is that when you go back into an area which has the spades, the bad news, do I have to roll again? I think I have to roll again, to be honest. I think that's how it works. So we have to go here, we check our gas as usual. Now remember, I failed on a 1 or 2 now, so I'm okay. Right, and then here, the 4 of spades, I've got to roll a d6. I get a 1, I get out there. If you do not have glow remaining, roll 2 dice and take the lower when navigating modules. Well, I still have glow, so I think I'm okay. Because it doesn't say that I have to spend the glow. Okay, then I go back here. Now, when I'm moving into and out of the airlock, I don't know if I have to check gas. Again, I couldn't find anything to tell me. So I don't know whether the airlock, I think I think I do have to check gas, because it says even if I reach the airlock, if I've got a 6 on my gas, I'm dead. So, all right, so I just failed the, remember I'm failing on a 1 or 2. So I failed my gas again, so I would tick off another box on my gas, and I'm now failing my gas rolls on a 1, 2, or 3. Now, I'm in a tricky situation here. I haven't found any cargo. If I go back now, I don't have any creds to pay my upkeep of 1. I need at least 1 cargo to pay my upkeep. If I go back now, I lose the game because I can't pay the upkeep. The bank comes and confiscates everything. So I have to continue. I've got no choice. Even though now I'm failing on a 1, 2, or 3. So let's move up here. Checking gas. That's a 6. Okay, I'm okay. I need a diamond. We get a diamond, thank God for that. But we haven't found the payday. So for the diamond, what do we get? What do we get? All right, so this is salvage. So I have a 3 of diamonds, packed rats, ration packs, vitamins. Okay, so load of 2. So what that means is that in this area, there are 2 points of salvage, or 2 points of load that I can carry. And let's assume that I do have a load of 2. I can now carry these and try and get back to the ship. And I think, to be honest with you, I'd probably bug out. So let's take that. Again, as long as my load is enough to carry 2, I'll move back to the airlock. I'll check my gas. Now I'm failing on a 1, 2, or 3. I get a 4. I'm okay. I then have to check my airlock. So I roll a 4 for the airlock. What does it say? Choose one of the following. Yeah, I'm just going to go home. So I'd only make 2 credits from this trip. One of them would go for upkeep, and I'd make a profit of 1 credit. That's it. Oh dear. The thing is, I would be very worried about the air. But that's how the game plays, and you would explore the ship, checking your gas, turning over the cards to find out what. Oh my God, that's a terrible one. The Jack of Spades. Oh, generally for spades, the higher the card, the worse it is. So yeah, you would go exploring the ship, opening all the, oh God, the 5 of Spades as well. Opening these modules and seeing what you find, checking your gas, bringing stuff back to your ship. Where's the bloody... I put the airlock on the... I put the airlock on the payday. The payday was destroyed when I joined with the ship. That's where a scanner is useful. But yeah, that's how the game is played. And like I say, once you've done that, you go back to your planet. You pay the upkeep. You check what the bank's doing. And then you do it again. And again, and again, and again. Like I say, when I first read the rules, I was kind of thinking, oof, this looks a bit tricky. But it isn't. Once you actually start playing it, it flows really, really well. And I found that in an hour of gameplay, I was exploring 3 ships, 4 ships in an hour. There's not a lot of bookkeeping. There's not a huge amount of decisions to be made in terms of the gameplay itself, because a lot of it's run by the Oracle. In terms of the cards you turn over, because it basically tells you what's happening. You just have to react. In terms of decisions, well, there are some, like you saw just now with the airlock. Do you spend a gear point? Do you make a gas check? Do you just quit and go away? I mean, there are some decisions, but it's not a huge decision-making game. It flows very simple. It's easy to follow. It guides you really, really well. And like I say, I think it's a very good game to play. You can, when you come back, you can spend your creds on upgrades, or you can improve your stats. You can do investments. There's a lot of things that you can do. I think I bought this. Where did I buy this? January, maybe? I think I bought it for $10. I think the price has gone up. I think it's $12 or $15, depending on where you look. But it's definitely worth having a look for. it's a neat little game. And like I say, I like the way that they're using the playing cards and the dice as mechanics. I also like the way that the gas is handled in terms of that degrading, what's the word? The degrading rolls, where once you start failing, the chance of further failure increases. I really like that system. It's not good for me because I roll a lot of ones, but in terms of the game design, I really like the gas system. I think that can be applied, I think that very same mechanic can be applied into many other types of games. What else? I think that the basis of this game, I mean, even some of the mechanics could lend itself well to a 2-player, 3-player, 4-player game, where it is competitive, where you are up against other belters who are searching the same ship. So I think you can't play the game as it is with more than one player, but I think another game could be designed using this as inspiration, where maybe you have a larger ship and using these basic mechanics in terms of the searching and the gas system, the oxygen system. I think it would lend itself very, very nicely to a competitive game between belters. But yeah, this is a very nice little game that, again, I would highly recommend.